Mm.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the New Earth Leadership Summit, inspiring spiritual entrepreneurs like you to step into their personal power so that you can become the leaders of New Earth. And today I have with me Ixchelle from Starseed Dreaming, and I'm so excited for you to meet her. She is a lifelong clairvoyant, an energy worker, a teacher, and a channel, and she has brought forth a new modality of energy healing called quantum source light energy healing. And I'm going to have her explain that to you, but it definitely works with frequencies and supporting the collective as they reclaim their light. So I'm going to get into the healing modality because I'm very interested in hearing more about this. But Ixchelle, and welcome to the show. It's good
Thank
to
you for
have you
having
here.
me. Thank you for having
Absolutely.
me. And thank you for putting this together. It's so important to make sure that we have voices across the spectrum, connecting people to their lights and their pathway back home. So thank you.
Absolutely. Oh, it is a pleasure and I'm so excited. And what I'd love to start with is just hearing a little bit about your story. How did you find your path? Can you tell us the story?
Yeah. Well, in a nutshell, I was born clairvoyant. I've always been psychic to some degree. And as you can imagine, that was really, really difficult as a child.
Yeah.
We all know in the spiritual community, there's no books. There are very few resources for people who have their abilities come online as children or as adults. I think we're getting closer to that level of support now, which is why things like this are so powerful, because there are people out there who are going through those first layers of awakening. And they go out and they seek, and hopefully they connect to these high vibrational tools and resources like what you've put out. But at the time I had nothing, and so it
Yeah.
was very, oh my gosh, it was so difficult, really traumatic, as you can imagine. At that level you really can't control what you perceive, so it's just the
Right.
entire spectrum of beings came through, and eventually with the help of my team, I call them my guides of light. Everybody has a team of light around them.
Yes. Yes. I'm always talking about my spirit team. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, yeah. And so eventually, they came in and tried to help navigate. And, the big thing with the support systems that we have is they're not going to live your life for you. They're not going to tell you what to do. They're always going to honor your free will, but they can definitely be that navigation that will help you get to where you need to be. And my navigation system kept talking about, this is what I meant to do. This is what I meant to do. And I didn't want anything to do with it. I was like, nope, 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 nope. I don't care.
Right.
um, I would literally have these back and forth where I was like, I don't care what you tell me. I'm not going to do anything with it. Go talk to someone else. This isn't me. And really just tried to live as, normal of a life as possible, not really telling anybody, that I knew things. I knew when friends were pregnant. I knew when bad things were going to happen. Really didn't even tell my spouse. He just thought it was weird that I'd wake up in the middle of the night talking, but kept
Yeah.
it to myself. And it really, like so many of us, wasn't until about my early 30s when it just kind of all came to a head, as these things do when you do not align with your soul path. The universe has a way of kind of shoving you into it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know lots of people listening have been through that. So yeah, it's easier if you just listen at the beginning.
Just listen at the
Yeah.
beginning, taking notes. Yes.
Yeah. But we get there when we get there, and it truly is divine timing. So that was when I was ready. And it was basically, kind of my world had fallen apart. Found myself a single mom, and lost my normal business. I had a restaurant, and now I'm divorced and all that. And I said, okay, all right, fine. I kind of threw my hands up and looked up at the universe, and I knew my team was there because they've always been there, no matter how many times I tried to send them away. Um, and I said, okay, I don't know where this is going to lead. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with these messages you give me, but I'm open to this pathway now. and help me, right? Help me
Yeah.
find my way through. And of course, that's its own journey. So many of us are called to do healing work first, and I'm no different. So a lot of that was simply just getting back to basics and healing, recognizing my power as an individual consciousness, which is a lot of what I talk about now. Is no matter where you find yourself, no matter where you have landed in this world, whoever's listening, to this or these other messages, you are divine, you are incredible, you are powerful. And while it may seem, the perception that we've lost that, it's always there.
Oh, absolutely.
And
I,
that's so
yeah.
powerful for people to connect with.
It is the highest truth. I think that what you just said right there, recognize your power as an individual consciousness, is where we were talking. And I absolutely agree with that sentiment, because I see, what the ultimate truth is, we're one, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that includes every single thing. We're not, and the separation is the only illusion that there is, that we're
yeah,
experiencing. I mean, there's layers to this illusion, of course. I'm not saying there
yeah,
isn't more illusion, but the biggest illusion that we're under is this idea that somehow we're separate, and that's where we got the whole hierarchical structure,
yes,
right, of
yeah,
superiority, inferiority, different.
yeah,
We're the same and different at the same time. So I'd love to talk about that, because before we hit record, we were having a great conversation about our two experiences. And Ixchelle and I, the first time we connected, we had sort of a love fest, because it was like, yes, I recognize that. Yes, I recognize your story. Like that is so similar to my own story. And yet the beautiful thing is, if you could have seen our story side by side, where we're both children who are experiencing way too much, who don't even understand to talk about it, because
yeah,
we just think that is life, right? It's
yeah,
our experience. So how do we
yeah,
even express that at such a young age?
yeah,
And then growing up and going through our own life paths, and seeing how, as we accepted the gift and took it in, our our sensory interpretation, how we work through it, how it makes sense to us, is so incredibly different and yet harmonious. So there is understanding, absolutely. And it's more like, it's almost like how languages are different, right? They're forms differently, but the intent is the same. If you're saying hello, no matter what
yeah,
language, it's still hello.
yeah,
And so we were talking about our paths, and I was talking about how, I'm constantly reading the cosmos and the timing and the maps and looking for synchronicity. And I was making my jokes based on my references. And you were so cute, because you were like, I'm just going to say yes, nod my head, and go, okay, sure. She got the
yeah,
intention, even though the language isn't the language she speaks.
yeah, yeah. No, it is, and to that, and I know we talked about this before, but however we get there, right? The universe is rich with resources, with um, that universal language. It's going to speak to your soul based on your soul's experiences, which are way more expansive than this place, this lifetime, right?
Yeah.
So many of us have had experiences not just on earth in past lives, but in ethereal form, as part of group soul structures on other planets. Ultimately, we're all source anyway,
Yeah.
so the entirety of the universe's experiences are our own. So however you get there, however you navigate the stars, the way that you chart your course, if it's aligned, if it feels good to your soul, uh, do that. Do what feels best for you, not because some guru says so. And that's, I think, where we start to get into that little bit of, especially when we're first awakening and we're looking for answers, like we've talked about, you and I were on that searching journey,
Yeah.
who can help me with this? And it's easy to sort of stumble onto, whether it's YouTube or Instagram or whatever, and we see people who we admire because they seem like they've figured it out. We want to figure it out. And it's sort of, I think everyone does it. We start to align with what works for them,
Mm-hmm.
and sort of try on different outfits, right? Different spiritual, is it this? Is it that? Is it, astrology? Is it, but ultimately, those are tools and resources to help you connect with you, right? That
Right.
doesn't change.
Right.
And so if that works for you, do that.
Absolutely.
But it's you. It was always you, like all the movies. It was
Yeah.
always you.
It was always you. You're the one you're waiting for.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the magic is you. So, as what I always say is, as long as whatever you are working with or whomever you are working with brings you back home to you, because it's always a red flag if you start seeing, you're abdicating your power or you're leaning too much on something outside of yourself. There's so much we don't understand about the nature of this reality and the our consciousness and the way we perceive. So, home is always within.
I agree. One of the, and we can talk about this, and I'd love to hear your messages that you're getting. So, and again, we operate similarly in the realms where we sort of take the higher, we're looking at the bigger view and sort of looking down and seeing how does this all translate. One of the messages I got from my own team, and they really started giving me this predominantly back in 2016, but they were like, prepare for this, prepare for this. And one of the things they said to prepare for was like, the deeper you go into this, the deeper you go into the Great Awakening, the more confusing it's going to get. And it's by design. It's
Yeah.
all by design to get you to drive you inward. What happens when you can't use those external tools anymore?
Yeah.
To what if the external tools start clashing, and where all the messages were syncing up and now they're like out of sync and falling apart? It's going to cause you to run it through your own system
Yeah.
and find truth within, and that will be the ultimate teacher that you turn to.
Yeah.
So that's one of the messages that's come through. And with that, as a person who also teaches, what came through for me is like, realize that as you're choosing to do this to help people, to show them the way forward, you're taking on a lot of karmic responsibility. So
Yeah.
you better direct them back to their power, and don't ask them to siphon off of yours, or don't
Yeah.
pretend like you have unlimited power to give someone. Always send them back to themselves, because otherwise you're taking on a lot of karma
Yeah.
and gets
That's
intense.
so
So
good.
yeah, tell me from your experience, how is that coming through for you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I align with everything you said. Um, it is a great responsibility, whether it's mothering your own family or, being a voice in the community that is seen and heard, and, to act out of integrity. It's okay to not have the answers, right? It's okay
Yeah.
to not know. And I think that's really important for people who watch summits like these, and, who have whomever they follow and respect and admire in that now moment. We're all human and we're all figuring it out. And none of us have all of the answers.
Absolutely.
It's collaborative. I might have a piece that I've sorted through because that's part of my soul journey, and you have a piece you've sorted through, and the person listening, and it's so important, the person listening
Mm-hmm.
has their piece. It's collaborative because we're all fractals of source. That's the big
Yes.
message. We're all
Yeah.
fractals of source, and that doesn't change. It can't be changed. So there's so many things that the guides have brought through lately with everything that's been going on, and we know the macro is getting intense, right? We see it. Those with eyes to
Mm-hmm.
see recognize all the programs, and I talk a lot about that, in balance with the higher, because it's easy, as you mentioned, to get too focused on what's next. And the truth is that everything is always shifting and changing.
Yeah.
I do see timelines. It's part of one of the things that I'm able to do, and they shift. Right. Even for myself, the timeline that I see for myself, I check in a few months later. Well, I've made decisions that have altered the course of that timeline, or someone else that is closely linked to that timeline has shifted substantially enough to create a completely different trajectory. And we're doing that collectively. I mean, think about, we have 7 billion people on the planet or plus, right?
Mm-hmm.
and they're all making free will choices. Now, most people tend to make sort of predictable within their sort of scope of, so that's where we see timeline trajectories. That's where we see, well, this is likely, right? We're
Yeah.
headed towards this, because people tend to be creatures of habit.
Right.
But at the same time, the more that things shift and the more intense things get, people are waking up like never before. And I know you've seen that. We've all seen it. Like, just think about 5 years ago. I mean, oh my gosh,
I
right?
know. I
Whether
know.
it's spiritual, whether it's the nature of our reality, whether it's, corruption in our 3D reality, people are getting it. And they're starting to sort of wake up from that, sleeping beauty slumber. And they're like, wait a minute.
Right.
Uh, and that's where we are. And when those big things happen, that's where we see big shifts in timelines, because now people are no longer operating from their sort of well-worn trajectory.
Yeah.
Now they're coloring outside the lines. They're going, wait a minute, questioning, I'm getting so many chills, questioning the entire nature of their reality, which is what we're supposed to do. So, for those people who kind of look at everything that's happening right now, and rightfully so, start to feel like, oh, it's a lot, it's overwhelming, I don't know what I'm going to do. Remember that it needs to be like this in
Yes.
order to awaken people from their slumber. And yes, that's kind of extra hard for those of us who've been awake, because we're like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm ready to move on.
Yep. Yep.
um,
All of us. Yeah.
but remembering to hold space for the so many souls that are just stepping into that and just recognizing, oh, okay, reality is not what I thought it was, whatever
Hmm.
that means for them.
Yeah.
And so it has to happen like that. But, the biggest message the guides bring through is that new earth, the new timelines are being created by us.
Yes. Love that.
The
Absolutely.
greatest deception that was ever played on humanity and any consciousness is to make them believe that they were powerless.
Hmm.
So the second you recognize, you don't have to get it, you don't have to understand it fully. You might just be dipping that toe. But the moment that you recognize, wait a minute, I am a fractal of source. Everything that created this universe, everything that is within me. I am connected to all and everything. And that same power that emanated from source, from a place of heart-based love, it's a whole other conversation, but it was from a place of heart-based love, is within us. So the answer is not to dive further into the fear program, which is
Hmm.
difficult to do. And I'm not saying it's easy, but to resist the fear-based program, to resist the calamity, the chaos, the catastrophe, because those are all programs that are being deployed right now and will continue to be deployed.
Yes.
And we are the antidote to that. Everyone always says, like, what do I do? What do I do? You have everything you need within you to navigate that. Your soul, your light, your frequency is the antidote to those programs. And when we shine and we walk through this earth with that confidence, that peace, even though, and I'm not saying, there's a difference between head in the sand programming,
Hmm.
the hear no evils, I don't want to see it, I don't know, la 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 la. We're not talking about that. We witness, we honor that, okay, our kindreds are going through this is in our macro reality. This is what we signed up for. We signed up to be human and to be part of that soup of experiences. But then we have our boundaries and we say, okay, and I'm going to shine brighter than that, and
Mm.
I'm going to love louder than that. And I am going to recognize that I am a sovereign and divine being of light. And I'm going to choose, so important, choose to step out of that program and into my light-filled program. And every single person I encounter, talk to, touch, go near, everywhere my feet step, I will lay light down,
Mm.
because that is what the world needs right now.
Ugh.
And that is being the new human that my guides talk so much about, our guides really talk so much about, the new human, the mothers and fathers of New Earth.
I love this. Okay, I've got tingles and I'm taking notes because these are important things that you've just said, and they're so resonant. So she's hit so many keywords that my own team has like said to
Oh, I
me.
love that.
So many, like choice. They're always having me talk about the power of choice.
Yeah.
It is one of our most power. In fact, in the law of one, they call the 3D realm, they call it the choice. And our whole point here is to make a choice about where our frequency is going. We get to choose whatever we want, but until we solidly make that choice, we repeat this realm again and again, because at some point we didn't choose. So I think a lot of us are, I think that the beautiful thing about this time is that it is a mass graduation point. So there's a lot of people choosing, which is great, because it's like, we don't need everybody to get it. But when it's 51% and more tipping us over, we all benefit from it. So when you said we are the antidote, I was like, zing, it just all came through, because that's the whole point of this summit, is to help us see that we don't have to wait for someone to give us permission to step up and lead.
Yes.
We have that choice now. Will you lead? Now here's an opportunity where that question's being, verbally presented to you. And you get to make a choice right now as you're listening. Will you lead? And then the next question is how, and what does that look like? And everybody's got a different answer, and and yet everybody's answers blend. So like the deeper I go into these interviews, I'm just like, because it's amazing how none of you have talked to each other. In fact, you don't even know who everyone is. But everybody's saying the same thing, and yet slightly different way, and have a slightly different context in which you can apply it. But if, as a listener, as you've been listening to these interviews, you're going to see that too. And it's going to give you the same excited feeling that I have when I get to talk to everybody, because it's like, the answer is so simple. And in a way, it's so simple that it feels like a trick, because it's really just be who you are, fully be who you are, love yourself, like really love yourself. Right? Because that loving of yourself, that's the radiating light that I see you talking about when you said every step I take, is light. I'm spreading light as I step. And I feel like that comes from that place of, again, what my team talks about is fourth density coming through the heart chakra. So a lot of people talk about fifth density, and I know that's where we're still, where of course we're always expanding, always evolving. But one of my tasks that I've been asked to talk about is really talk about fourth density, because it's the lessons of love. It is the open heart experience. And that's how we shift this, is through that energy, that area, and us coming fully into our heart space. And so, love is the answer. And that love must include you. And if it starts with you, where you feel held by yourself, held by that love, you're going to trust yourself. You're going to listen. You're going to see yourself as the fractal of source that you are. You're going to, trust your internal guidance to lead you through this. You're going to be able to transcend the illusion that you were talking about. You were talking about, you said something about seeing what's happening out there, not avoiding it. So not saying la, 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 it's not happening, but also not getting involved in it. And what it instantly reminds me of is the process that I'm constantly teaching people about, especially like shadow work. It's a great metaphor for how shadow work works, because in order to change anything, you have to look at it. I have to acknowledge that. It's like, I always use the metaphor of like a coffee cup or something like that. It's like, you can't drink the coffee if you don't accept that it's there, right? But that's good. The first initiation point is acceptance. I accept this is happening. Doesn't mean I like it. Doesn't mean I want it. It means that I acknowledge the truth of it. It's here. Right. And then there is So that's the acknowledgement, and then that acceptance that this is here. And what does that mean if it exists and I exist and I feel like I'm the antithesis of this thing that's happening? I don't resonate with it.
Right.
Right. So therefore I must be something different, or, it's still, I see it as a part of source too. So this is a hard part for a lot of people to understand when we're talking about, because we're so focused on the love and what we are, that
for sure.
we also have to realize that the void of that is also part of source. Like, why would it be created? So let's talk about that, because I think that's a really strong and powerful thing for us to look at, is why would the antithesis of us be created? So
No,
what are you for that?
It's such an important conversation that I think so many in this space don't like to talk about. As you say, there can be a lot of bypassing via leaning too much, especially in the 3D reality. I talk a lot about multidimensional consciousness in my work.
Okay. Yeah.
Meaning that we recognize and honor that we are here now, but we are also simultaneously source. We are also simultaneously everything. Now that's hard. I get that. And it takes time. It takes time to, sort of, I call it a remembering. At first, you're resistant to it because you have a certain way that you perceive reality. Eventually, it just kind of trickles into your mind. Something will happen. You go through your reality. It starts to sink deeper and deeper. It's an awakening. It's a remembering. Eventually, you have that aha moment, and you exist more from that place than from the dualistic separated place. And that's how you are making that progress forward back home. So I am myself, you are you. It is also true that we are simultaneously right now source consciousness, playing the role of myself, of you, and going through all of these experiences thanks to the free will aspect directive of source. And I do talk a lot about this in my community, but source at the beginning of this universe, there's a multiverse. We'll keep it here. At the beginning, you keep it simple.
keep it close to
home. At the beginning of this universe has the choice of what kind of reality this will be, having achieved the ability to become a source of its own universe. And in our reality, we do have a free will based universe. That means that you and I and everybody else has the ability to choose our pathway. And eventually that does mean separation, right? That means moving away from the light. You can't have ascension without descension.
Right.
You cannot have people choosing, because nobody's forcing us to go back to source, to choose to reintegrate. I always say, and this is how I've been told, source chose to experience all and everything. Well, that's all and everything.
Right. Everything.
Everything. And, from my individual consciousness perspective, I have my alignments, and I can look at something and I can say, that's horrible, that's abhorrent. I reject that. I have boundaries around that. That is my choice. That is my free will directive to do so. And that is a reflection of who I am as a soul. But likewise, there are others who will choose the descension pathway and choose to descend further. They are still fractals of sorts. It's important to keep that in mind. And I know that's hard in this reality, because we can look at something and go, how can I have any level of acceptance or let alone love for the individuals doing these things, for the structures and systems doing these things? They're horrendous. And I get that. And I know that. And I know that that's where a lot of people in the spiritual community, and perhaps those watching, hit that wall, where they're like, okay, love for myself, all right, and love for people that we align with is kind of easy.
Oh, yeah.
But it's the love for everything in this universe, including that which we naturally reject. And that's where multi-locational consciousness comes in. Because my 3D in this reality, I chose to be here, I chose the human experience, can go, wow, that's really, and I don't want to be sweary, my daughter told me to keep it clean. That's really effed up. Um, that was her advice. She's like, Mama, just don't swear too much. It's like, okay, baby. So yeah, that can get really effed up, right? And we look at that and we go, oh my God, okay, that's hard for me to hold love and unity consciousness for that. And that's okay, because that's the human experience. I honor that. I
Right.
honor the, ooh, that's a wall I can't blend with. And I take a second and I move into my higher consciousness, because I am both. We are everything. You and everyone watching, we are all that.
Yes.
And I can go, okay, from the higher perspective, closer to source or at source level, depending on where you perceive from. That is an aspect of myself that has used their free will journey that they have been granted, that I have granted them, to express all variations of consciousness.
Yeah.
And again, that doesn't mean we don't have boundaries. Boundaries are divine and powerful. But to simply acknowledge that allows us to move. See, even saying it, I'm like, oh, it's not so bad. Right? Even saying it, we recognize, okay, I do see that. And I can, even if it's for a second, hold compassion, hold love for the person experiencing their reality from such a great level of separation. Because let's take a second and think about that. Let's step out of the victimization, the antagonist, and just take a second to perceive from source's perspective. That's an aspect of myself that has gone so far away from home, from the light, from all that I am and began as. I mean, my heart just bursts open. If anything, anyone, any program needs love, it is that program, those people in that space. And again, you don't have to hold that 24/7 in your human reality. We get pulled in different directions. The guides always say it's not about perfection. They remind me constantly, we're not asking you to be perfect. We're asking you to expand.
And I love what you brought up about the power of being able to hold compassion even for a second, because so I do work with people in the spirit circle, which is the lunar and planetary alignments that I do. We always do a loving kindness meditation, and in it there's always a level where we acknowledge the people that feel distant or far away or even strange to us, and we drop the illusion of separation. So we're not asking to try and get in there and understand. We're just asking ourselves to drop the illusion and bring them in with love and send them love and wish them well and wish them peace. And what I think the way that I've been able to navigate this and hold space, because there's a particular person who I use as a practice. She's a well-known political figure who is quite embroiled in things. And she's very triggery. And that's all I'm going to say about it. She's a triggery person. But here's what I do with her is the version she shows up as now, I can't resonate with. I'm just like, we need some justice here. But if I go to her as a 2-year-old, where I'm watching her life back then. And so timelines is something I love to look at too. And I can go there and look at her and be like, that poor little being, that innocent little being, and what is happening to her that would create the person she becomes. And that's the one I hold, because that's where I can see source in her easily. Right. And that still exists. It's like, even through all that horrible, like covering and the separation and the dark that can enfold people and who choose that path, the source is still in there. It doesn't go. They get disconnected from it. And so part of I find it really healing to pick somebody that you find so polarizing in your life and try to find how you could connect to source in them. And it's sort of like a reverse exercise. There's there's always 2 ways in. God always gives us these like incredible doorways where it's like you can get in through the front door or the back door, but you can still get in. And so when you do this work, you can either do it from the front door, which is go right to yourself and the aspects of yourself you reject, and start accepting and loving those pieces, because that's
Yeah.
where you're separating inside of yourself, right? So if you can heal and bring to and unify within, you can easily unify externally.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you're still too like, if it's still too tender, if it's still too hard to pull that aspect in, find the external that you're like, I can't accept this at all. And then see if you can find the, follow the thread backwards as far as you have to go, even if it's to infancy, and find the innocence there and start loving and sending love to that being. Who knows what we're doing as we do that? By the way, I honestly think it's sort of a quantum leap situation where you're projecting energy into a past that shifts that person vibrationally forward. And that person needs a lot of love. What happened that would make you want to separate so far? So there's that level, but there's also the other part, which brings me peace when I think about it. And that's the fact that, like you said before, we're all players in the play. We're all just source playing a big show, right? And every great movie, every great play, there has to be the the antagonist, the bad guy. And so what if these people are actually so full of love on some level that we might not perceive right now, that they're willing to play the bad guy so that you don't have to. You get to be the good guy in this movie.
Oh, that's good. That's so powerful. Yeah.
Well, it's what I love about it is it's like a sort of odd form of respect shows up. Like you suddenly start like, wow, I never wanted to play the bad guy.
Yeah.
And thank you for taking this role so that I don't have to express that way. This is, I'm sure I've had people tell me in past lives, like I've played a bad guy before. I think we all have, if we've been around, if we've hung out on this level for a while to help shift it. I think we had to play a lot of different parts. We had to see which was the most effective role for our particular energy signature to work through. Like, where do I make the most impact? And I think that by sort of shifting the mind about how we're seeing this play out, like asking ourselves to look underneath the surface and see what the energetics are and how does it serve? Because I don't believe source creates anything arbitrarily. I just don't. I think there, some people think chaos theory, like it's all just like thrown at the wall, let's see what happens. And just from everything I've observed and everything I've felt and everything I've gone through, everything is so synchronous, so timed. It's more like a Swiss watch, the way that it works together, which means nothing is created as waste.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I know we were talking earlier. I do a lot of work with the consciousness of reality, which is to what you were saying, this sort of remembering that even reality is conscious. The fabric of, I call it the quantum reality, it is conscious and it has intelligence, different than what we, sort of our frame of reference, but there is intelligence there, there is consciousness there. And we see those patterns repeat and come in and play again and again and again. And everything is moving us towards what we are creating for ourselves, but also what we are co-creating. And remember, we are also co-creating with beings of light, ethereal beings, off-planet incarnated beings. So there's, we talked about at the beginning, there's so much we don't understand. Even people who spend their time in this space, there's so much we don't understand that we're just mentally incapable of processing. So it's important, again, we come back to love, we come back to unity consciousness, sort of the roots of everything. And really that's what you're talking about when you're talking about, imagining these individuals who bring that up for you. And we all have them, whether it's in your private life, a family member, whether it's someone on the public stage, and we're on our journey and we're having a good time. And we're like, yeah, I got it. I'm great. Like love and light. And then you hit the wall and you're like, right. And all of a sudden you contract and you come back into yourself. And really, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about reconnecting to unity consciousness.
Yes.
That's the big thing that, when we talk about new earth reality and the vibration, because it's a vibration. I'm sure people have talked about that on your summit.
Yeah. Well,
New earth.
let's have you go deeper into it. So let's talk about that. Your perception of new earth is, go ahead,
Yeah,
vibrational.
it's vibrational. Everything is vibrational. And so the way the guides show me is, and this is kind of my domain where I spend a lot of my time and the information that they grant me. And they show me that every individual sort of has is made up of these. I don't have the language for it, and I don't think on Earth we have the language for it, but sort of we'll call them subatomic particles. And there is sort of a central particle, and there is something that spins around it. They're not connected, much like an electron, right? And there's a spin.
Yeah.
And these are imperceivable. They make up our soul, the core of our essence. They're also part of our physicality. It's everything. The desk that I'm touching, the house that I'm in, it is everything. And what they show me is that as we raise our vibrational frequency, the rate of spin increases. They show me that spin, it goes faster and faster and faster and faster.
Mm.
And so what they tell me then, the outcome of that higher increase of spin is magnetism. We become more magnetic.
Makes sense.
When you're more magnetic, you are going to call to yourself, bring to yourself, pull to yourself from the quantum reality, the experiences, the people that align. Now, eventually you get to a level where this whole reality is friction. This whole reality is misaligned, right? Ooh, I'm getting chills.
Love it.
Yeah. So this entire existence is no longer in alignment. You're spending more time, again, not perfection, because everyone goes to, oh, but I had that one moment, or I got mad and I yelled at my kids, or my boss, I hate my boss. Like whatever it is, we're all human. We're
Yep.
all on the ascension journey as humans. And I have to
Mhm.
say, and everyone talks about 5D, but 5D isn't the end all be all. There's a
No, it's
lot
so,
more
oh
room.
God, yeah. And some of us, I know some of us are actually from above that. I mean, the thing is, we don't get to play that necessarily. We get to try and remember it, but we don't get, we have to come in human.
Yeah. So
part of the game.
yeah, it's not about perfection, right? So
Right.
even in fifth density vibrational reality, there's still plenty of room to experience friction, to experience growth, and that will continue. So I just know it's an important message for everyone to hear, is that you don't have to be perfect. What you are being called to do, if you choose an ascension pathway, is to simply vibrate at the next level, which is aligned with, I always say the words we use, because how can you quantify frequency? But the words we use: love, compassion, unity, forgiveness, kindness. These are words that we have a frame of reference. Oh, okay, I get that. I get that. Those are the frequencies that we are moving towards more often than not, experiencing in this now moment reality. Eventually you lock in. They talk to me a lot about this sort of energetic locking into the higher reality. And we play with it, right? We come back, we go there, we're like, oh, it's good. Oh, something triggered me. And we come back.
Yes.
Eventually, we lock in to the higher plane of reality. So when they talk about being the mothers and fathers of New Earth, that's not to make us feel good. They're telling us we are literally creating that with our heart resonance, because we no longer vibrate with the reality that we are in.
Right.
Now, and I talk about this in my community, this has been attempted before. We have tried to do this before, and if we want to get really sort of like big in our thinking, this timeline has already happened. and we've tried, and we come back and we try it again. So it is true that we are in a redundant timeline, and it is also true that we are in a completely new timeline. And I know that's hard. You don't have to
No,
understand,
I get,
people, yeah, people listening don't have to get it. If
yeah.
you do, that's awesome, because that's going to help you really wrap your head around what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
We have tried this off ramp before. I call it an off ramp, right? There is the well-worn lower dimensional, lower vibrational reality of Earth. And that has happened. That has already happened. And we have come back again and again and again, trying to solidify that off ramp to a higher vibrational reality.
Yeah.
And this is what's incredible and amazing. This is now happening. We have now begun to carve that reality. And the way that the guides explain it to me, and clairvoyantly, the way I see it is, and this is true of a lot of these realities that we spend our mental space in, whether they're stories, books, our own creations in our mind. But New Earth is an island of reality. It
Mm-hmm.
exists now as an actual plane of consciousness, reality. What we are currently doing is connecting our timeline to that timeline. That's what I call the off ramp, or the bridge. It's more
Bridge, right?
right. People talk about the rainbow bridge. Some people have seen the rainbow bridge. It is a frequency that connects from here to there. So it does
Mm-hmm.
exist. But
Mm-hmm.
what we're all trying to do through that heart resonance, awakening, healing, recognizing your power, coming into unity consciousness, is vibrating at that next level. And when you do, more often than not, that's really key. So they'll say, 51% or more, although they recommend more because it's easier.
More, right?
That's a hard one, but higher percentage than that, more often than not, in that resonance, that begins to become your reality. And the frictional, lower vibrational Earth reality becomes more and more distant. That is the New Earth frequency. And we are doing that now. And we have so much love, and we have so much support. I mean, oh my gosh. And that's a huge message right now, is that no matter what is going on in your reality, you are so supported. You have a team of light with you. Everybody does. I know people will say, well, I can't hear them, or I can't see them because their clairvoyance isn't online, or their claircognizance isn't being recognized, but they are there. You don't, I'm breathing oxygen I don't see. I know it's
Mm-hmm.
there. They are
Yes.
there. They've been with us since the beginning of our individual incarnation. They know. They know how hard it is to be human. They have
Mm.
so much love, so much compassion. I do a lot of these readings for individuals. There's always so much heartfelt compassion for those of us who have chosen this pathway, this very difficult pathway of tapping in, being human, and connecting humanity to New Earth through my experience, your experience, the listener's experience, because that's what it is. And at any point, if you feel stuck, you feel lost, you feel like you don't know, do I go left or do I go right? Is this in alignment or not? We have not only the quantum reality, which is conscious and will work with us, and source, which we are. So,
Yeah,
source has your back because it's you.
absolutely.
But also we have this team of adepts, because they are
Mm-hmm.
available to us for everything. And there is nothing too mundane. People will say, well, I don't want to bother my guides with that. Look, if you need to figure out if you have to move or put your kid in daycare, or like, should you buy chicken this afternoon, or like whatever it is that you are genuinely feeling the need to have assistance with in your reality, there's no judgment. You can call in your guides, and the synchronicities start, and you might get a hit in a dream. You might get claircognizance is I think the most under recognized ability, where we just know, but because it's not this like big blockbuster event with like,
Right. The
all the
light.
special
Oh.
effects, we think, and I talk to so many people who are like, once we discuss it, they recognize, yeah, I have had those hits. I have had those things come into meditation. I have had that moment where I was driving and boop, I just had this thought that ended up being in alignment with something down that day or down the week. So it's, again, we come back to, connecting in with ourselves, connecting in with our own intuition, our own higher knowing, honoring that they're there. And really what we are just doing is that awakening process. And that looks different for everybody. Just because you're not clairvoyant doesn't mean you're not on the path. There could be so many other things involved.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, maybe you don't remember your dreams. It doesn't mean that momentous things didn't happen in that space that are now speaking to your code, to your DNA, to your higher consciousness. There are so many ways that we are receivers of information, whether it's the sunlight that hits your skin or your feet in the sand or a dream, or recognizing those synchronicities, or just overt clairvoyant experiences. We are all being communicated with. And so you are so, so, so supported no matter where you are on this path.
Absolutely. Everything you're saying. So it's, again, it's the same reaction I had the first time I got to chat with you, where I was like, I know you. And also we get so much of like just the messages that she's coming and bringing through are messages that I've also received. And so it's so much like validation, alignment, synchronicity. My team often makes the joke that they're your 24/7 tech support. I don't know if you ever
Love
saw the
that.
movie Vanilla Sky. Did you ever see
I
that?
did.
Okay.
I did.
Just the second half, when he's in the lucid dream and the guy is there and he's just sitting there, they were like, that's us. Okay. We're with you all the time. And notice how like Tom Cruise's character freaks out. He's like, following me. And he's like, I'm here to help you, but I can't come up to you. I'm only here to observe until you call me. And the team is like, you've got 24/7 tech support. And we can't call you. It's free will. We're here and we're so bored. Please call us. They're like, I don't care if you want to talk about chicken. Let's talk about chicken. Let's talk about what clothes to buy, whether you should save your money or spend it, whether you should,
Yeah.
they
Yes.
don't care. It's like their whole existence right now is about you,
Yeah.
is about serving you and being there for you. And it's like, I sometimes feel into them and I'm like, God, how frustrating that might be. They don't
Yeah.
ever come across as frustrated, but I've like, from the human self, I'd be so frustrated to
Yeah,
be
of
like
course.
waiting to help you and never getting to call you. There's those
Yeah.
exceptional moments where it's in your contract, where it's like, especially
Yeah.
some of us have contracts of protection.
Mhm.
So if you wander into the street, for example, and you're not supposed to go until so and so later, then they have that,
Yeah.
there's the caveat where they can like grab you, pull you, use
Yeah.
another person, pull you back
Right.
and put
They
you
will
back on the
intervene.
sidewalk.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But without those exceptional circumstances,
Yeah.
some people ask me, why am I suffering like that? Why would they let me
Yeah.
suffer? As if like our suffering is seen the same way over there as
Yeah.
it is over here.
Yeah.
And you probably have the same conversation as well. We know it's designed catalyst. It's help us make choices,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It gets us to move into alignment
Right.
with what we meant to do.
Yeah. And when you start perceiving it that way, it changes your whole reality. I've not been shy on Instagram, which is mainly where I'm at and in my community. I'm very open about the things I've gone through, the traumas I've been through as a human in this lifetime, let alone things that, I remember from other lifetimes. And the moment that you stop looking at it as this happened to me, and it's very natural, I'm not judging that, but it's very natural to perceive, you are, by the definition of this 3D reality, the victim, because we don't know anything else. We don't recognize our divinity. We don't remember that we're source experiencing every possibility in this reality and that we're playing a role. So in those moments, it's so helpful when you're working through healing, which, by the way, the guides love, love, love to help you with. So if that's what
Mm-hmm.
you're doing, call them in. But when you're working through healing, it's so powerful to begin to perceive from those higher places, because suddenly it's like it happened and you honor it and you hold space for it. We're not ignoring it. We're not, bypassing it. We are alchemizing it into light. We're looking at those dark moments, which are genuine and real, and they feel as real as can possibly be. But you're adding that layer of light to them that you probably didn't recognize ever before. with the
Mm.
help of your guides, with the help of your own amplification, the height. Remember, you vibrate higher even for a moment. That's going to call in that alignment. So that can look like people helping you. That can look like synchronicity. I mean, we've all been there, right? Like it's the, right up until that deadline and you're like, I don't know how this is going to work. And then something
Yeah.
happens, something comes in. That is how it works. And so when you're able to perceive from these higher places, even healing is easy. Things that you think you can't heal from, you can absolutely heal from. And that's also part of the new human, new earth experience. It's not about not going through friction, but
Mm.
recognizing that the friction is there to support, to nudge you in the direction of the evolution of your soul.
This is such a good point. And actually, it nicely goes into the next question is, so let's talk about the healing and specifically the modality that you teach and use, which is the quantum source light energy healing, because you just said that healing's easier than maybe we acknowledge.
Oh yeah.
So, your own divine guidance gave you this tool. They said, okay, you're the channel that this is going to come through. Explain to us, how did it come through and how is it working and why now? Like, did they
Yeah.
give you the why now?
Yeah. The why now is we're moving into the new human, and part of the new human, operating system, if you will, is that we know how to heal ourselves.
Yeah.
We know how to heal each other. We've had lots of modalities in this reality that have been wonderful and have served their purpose. We've gone from being completely isolated from our power in every way, including healing.
Hmm.
And we had to have those modalities that served as stepping stones, right? To just let people know, hey, it's even possible. I mean, if you think about, even 50 years ago, people didn't recognize they had energy fields around them. Now,
Right.
not only do we recognize that, but we're largely comfortable with the idea of using those energy fields for good. And so this is really just that next level. Quantum source light energy healing. I didn't know I was going to bring it through. For a while after I had started Starseed Dreaming. So I have to say, I never intended for Starseed Dreaming to be anything except a little Instagram account where I was going to share the stuff that came through. And that was it. I had no plans on it being anything other than that. And I would have been more than happy with it just being that. But as these things go, eventually the guides are coming in and they say, hey, it's time to start working with people. And I'm going, no, 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 no. I don't want to work with people. That's way outside my comfort zone. I don't want to do that. No thanks. And as the guides do, right, they're not going to trample on your free will, but they will come in and be like, hey, you remember that thing? Yeah, it's in alignment for
Do.
you to do that. So I resisted for a while. I finally said, okay, fine, but I want it to be really gentle. And they did that for me. And we started very slowly. But eventually I was receiving clients. And eventually they said, you're going to do energy healing. I'm like, I don't know how to do energy healing. I don't know the first thing about energy healing. They say, well, we're going to walk you through it. So you can imagine how terrifying it was to book those first few clients.
Oh, sure.
Originally it was donation based, but even that was like, oh, because I have integrity and I don't want to promise something I don't think I can deliver. And it was scary to imagine someone being let down.
Yeah.
But I trusted. That's a big lesson. Trusting your own abilities, trusting your team of light, trusting that everything is pulling you towards your expansion, the completion of your soul mission, your reconnection to source. So luckily at that point, I had really begun living that trust. And I can tell you it's really uncomfortable, but as you probably know, but you do it.
Hmm.
And they would actually walk me through. So, I work in the place of no space, no time, which is beyond this reality. It's outside of any it's a multidimensional space that's very close to source, very close to the origin point. And some people call it the void. I call it no space, no time. And we're in this space, and they're actually walking me through what to do. And they start bringing in these lights, I call them light frequencies. They look like they can present as like beams of light, watercolor splashes. Some have texture, but they're just recognizable as light frequencies. They have color to them. They have a feeling to them. They have messages. And they're doing the work, and I'm witnessing it because I'm clairvoyant, and they'll tell me, go here, focus on that. Everybody's different. And I relay this information to the person, and we're talking about how they're feeling, how they're suddenly those thought forms in their head are gone. Suddenly that pain in their left foot has been relieved. Suddenly they have an aha moment about some healing that they just couldn't grasp or couldn't get to. And so every client was a new light frequency coming through. And as I'm working with people, I'm learning about the light frequencies. These are, as the guides describe them to me, if we imagine the inception point of source, so, sources in this universe, and we don't have all the things that have existed that we recognize exist now. We simply have a clean slate. We have source's consciousness, and the quantum reality as what I call the operating system that allows reality to exist. And that's it. And we've got those two. And source chooses, as we said, to experience all and everything. That means duality, that means separation. But at that point, we have these light frequencies that which are aspects of source, start to separate. Those are the first moments of separation. And for a lot of people, this is that aha moment. This is you. This is you. So I may be bringing this forward. You might have direct contact with your team of light that will also add to this conversation, bring these things forward. But they are you. You are made of this. So to connect in with these frequencies is to connect in with the highest version of yourself. And because they exist so close to source, from our perspective, they are source. From source's perspective, it's that first separation point, right? Because it's sending itself out into sort of compartmentalized aspects of itself.
Yeah.
And I have a course where I teach, what each one is and what they're most aligned for, and how to work with them and how to connect with them. But basically, this is the beginning of reality. So when you call these aspects in to work with them, you are realigning yourself with those higher harmonics of reality. You are realigning yourself with yourself as source. The guides give me this example, and I think most people recognize this. We have two tuning forks. And we have one, and we tune one, we hit it, and it's got that vibrating, and eventually the other will begin to attune to the original.
Oh,
It's like that.
I love that. That is so cool.
Attuning. Yeah. And again, everybody has this ability. You don't need, there are no gatekeepers. And that's a big message for me. I know that there are, people have perceived these before, right? We've heard of light frequencies before. We usually attribute them to individuals. We call them ascended masters. That's a whole separate conversation. But what I will say is that there are no gatekeepers.
I love that.
You do not have to work with, if you don't want to, a middleman. What these individuals that we have attributed these frequencies to is that they embodied them. You have a frequency that you've embodied. I have a frequency that I've embodied. Sometimes we hear about people who can perceive the aura, and they'll say, oh, it's a lot of green or it's a lot of golden. Well, those are the light frequencies. The chakra system are a reflection of the light frequencies.
Why is that so important for people to understand, that there's nobody stopping you or preventing you or waiting to get permission from to do this work?
Yeah, absolutely. It comes back to sovereignty. The new human, new earth, higher vibrational alignment is about reclaiming our sovereignty. And so, like so many distortions, they have also penetrated the spiritual community. And it's okay. It's part of the process, right? Even the community itself is growing and evolving and ascending along with all of the other systems that are doing the same. So we're no different.
Mm.
So it's important to recognize, that's why I always say go inward, right? How does it feel to your soul? But what I do see, and I sort of gently witness in the spiritual community, is that there are a lot of teachings that revolve around gatekeepers. And I think we've heard all of them. And, whether it's Jesus or Mary Magdalene or Isis or Ganesh or, like all of the beings, um, if an individual feels called to connect with any of these individual consciousnesses that have existed before, if that feels in alignment, then do that. And I would recommend connecting with the highest expression of that individual consciousness, because just because someone has that god or goddess stamp or the ascended master stamp does not mean that they are that, and it does not mean that they are expressing in their highest expression that they can as an individual consciousness. So if you feel called to that, do that, but do that with sovereignty, right? Do that as a peer. And that's where everyone goes, wait, what? Yeah. We are
Yeah.
all equal. We are all, remember, we're all source. We're all fractals of source. So and that's hard for people, because I know, I can already sense people will watch this and they'll be triggered, right? They'll have that is contrary to
Mm.
my own perception at the moment. And that's a good thing, because that shows you where there is room to grow and evolve. And I've been no different. And when I first sort of stepped into the spiritual community and I saw all these teachings, and I was like, oh, wow. And I don't resonate with that. What does that mean for me? Right. I felt like I don't
Right.
belong
Right.
because I don't feel that way, or I must not be good enough, or maybe my channel's not enough.
I didn't earn it yet.
I
I'm
didn't
not
earn it.
worthy.
Yeah.
One of the biggest ego
Yeah.
traps, right?
Go.
Worthiness and enough.
Yeah. And that's all dualistic reality, right? That, because even when we're talking about worthiness, you're not worthy of it. Right? You need Saint Germain to connect you to the violet flame, right? He's your middleman. Same thing with the angels. Same thing with all of these structures that we have. And again, I'm not saying that cannot be in alignment with your pathway. They absolutely can.
Even our team, to a degree, we can do the same thing. We
Yes.
can make them middlemen.
Yes, absolutely. And so sovereignty, sovereignty, sovereignty. If you are going to work with your team, which I recommend you do, other beings of light, anything, really, anything, anyone, your partner, your family member, your friend, you should do it in alignment with your sovereignty. And that in itself is its own pathway, because most people will resist that. Most people will, what does that look like? You can start questioning yourself. Well, that's the journey. That's the journey to reclaim your sovereignty. And so you don't need a middleman to connect with source. That's you. It's
Right.
literally you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so
Yeah.
simple. It
Yeah.
is. And we've complicated it a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel, you're right. This could be triggering, and it's not our intention to cause suffering in anyone.
Yeah.
At the same time, some of the most beloved beings on the planet, the people that we look up to the most, we've separated from because we've made them above us.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that if we were to meet the Buddha or Jesus, they would be like, I love you, but you really missed my point. I said,
Yeah.
you could do what I could do because you're me and I'm you. And I'm just a little bit ahead, just a few more feet ahead. I'm just turning around saying, look what I just did. That's you.
Yeah.
Get here and you do that. The end.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And that in itself is such it's freeing. When I say no one has ever not been sovereign, but what we have done is we've abdicated it. We've abdicated our sovereignty
Mm,
because we didn't know better. And
right.
even unworthiness is duality. You are source. To be or to not to be, to believe that you are unworthy is in itself a reflection of your separation from source. The message that the guides bring through time and time again. The pathway forward, the pathway to your highest expression of yourself, the most abundance, the most joy, all the things that we are all calling in for ourselves,
Mhm.
that we can relate to in our real lived experience, is the path of sovereignty. And that also includes stepping into your most powerful creator self. And I know that's a big motivator for a lot of us, right? To create a better reality for ourselves, those that we love, our children, the earth. Well, in order to do that at its highest expression, at its easiest pace and fastest pace, is to reconnect with your creator self, which is also synonymous with reconnecting with your sovereignty. To connect with source is to be sovereign. So the moment that you step into, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, so and so does that better. And, it could be the lived experience that someone has more experience, or there is more to learn, but that has nothing to do with worthiness. That's simply a set of experiences. When we truly are in that moment of playing in unworthiness, we're in duality.
Mm,
Because to be connected with source, it is impossible to be unworthy. You can't
right.
be unworthy when you're reconnected back to source.
That's such a good
Like, it's
point.
not possible.
And this is, all of this dovetails, everything that you've just said really dovetails into the second point of the workshop, which is leadership. It's leadership, which is
Yeah.
I feel like leadership and sovereignty literally go hand in glove, if not are sort of a similar energy. They're at least when you're in your sovereignty, you're naturally a leader. I don't see how you couldn't be
Yeah,
a leader
absolutely.
if you're in your sovereign state.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I hope everyone takes away is that as you begin to embody that version of yourself, however that expresses in this now moment, because it's always shifting, right?
Mhm.
You become, the guides say, a lighthouse. They use that term, lighthouse. You become like a lighthouse. You may not recognize it, it may not be apparent in your lived reality, but other individuals, their soul, that embodiment around them, will pick up on your light, like the tuning forks,
Mm. Mhm.
and start to ascend in their own frequency simply because you chose the pathway of growth, evolution, light, unity, consciousness, reconnection back to source, sovereignty. And when earlier when I talked about everywhere you step, you leave light, you don't have to do anything sort of extraordinary the way that we tend to define it, because existing is extraordinary. You
That's
being,
that's a good point.
like, the
That's a
fact that you're
fine point.
here,
Right,
right?
exactly. That's pretty extraordinary. No, it's so true. It's so true because um and just to add to that statement, I've always been I've always received the message that you are also highly selected. So it's not random either. And there is quite a few beings who want to get on this planet for whatever the bigger purposes that we can't fully
Yeah.
comprehend while we're here. We're highly selected to be here at these times. We have to we have to be frequency matched to what is the bigger picture. And so you are a miracle just being here. It wasn't easy for you to just get here. You
Yeah.
had to be in alignment before you even got here.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
if you hold that for a minute, you start to realize why we have this sensation of life being precious. We hold that, right? We hold a sensation that this is precious. Like
Yeah.
if you were pushed up against the wall and it was life or death, you'd try to live,
Hmm.
even if you don't love your circumstances right now, even if you might think in a moment, this is really hard and I'm not so sure. For most of us, when it's dire succeed, people succeed.
For the
All right.
alarm to go.
So audience, because this conversation has been beautiful. It's been potent. We've even been triggery, if that's possible, maybe. What I love about it is that today has been sort of behind the scenes, what you're not seeing, because I'll edit a lot of it out.
Yeah.
Is that both Ixchelle and I have had things come in and literally seem to try and block this conversation, which actually weirdly gets me excited because I feel like we're onto something really juicy here.
It's good stuff.
It's good stuff. So she was just saying that your car alarm is going off, but your alarm is not engaged in the car.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Doors are unlocked. There's nobody there.
And it's still going off.
Yeah. So now I have my keys next to me, but that's
We'll
okay.
see.
That's okay. They're not going to stop our light.
Absolutely. And we've got a choice. We're doing choice right now. This is Choice Live. So we're choosing to continue to engage. Just like no matter what obstacle, we'll be here.
Yeah.
We're committed, you guys. We're committed to you. So I just
Yes.
had to share that because it's kind of funny. I mean, it's at the point right now
where
it's
comical.
a comedy.
Yeah, it is. It is. And there's that point that I made earlier. It doesn't have to be perfect. So often we think we have to show up and it's just got to be everything, lights, camera, action, where it's just going to be perfect. And it's not. Life isn't perfect.
Not at all. Not at all. And some of us, I think, are, I mean, first of all, when I remember when I finally understood that the universe actually has a great sense of humor, I actually started to enjoy life a lot more at that point, because I'm like, you guys are funny. Like this is comedy gold right here. There's nothing like, it's almost like I feel like they're just trying to say, hey, we're here, we're participating, we're celebrating with you.
Absolutely. They do. And I will say the guides do have a sense of humor. I mean, they're definitely, I talk to people about how to connect with their team of light, and the same thing, like they think it has to be perfect. You've got to go in. It's like, okay, all right. Hello. No, I mean, there are times where I'm on my phone and I see some funny cat video. I'm like, guys, this is funny.
That's good, guys. My favorite is how easily they show us how easily our language can get misinterpreted. So one of my favorite stories is when I first started manifesting and I was working on, I was conscious that I could do it and I was trying to consciously manifest. And so it was a game was like, try to manifest something physically within 24 hours or 48 hours, I think is what it was. And so you clear your mind and you try to focus on something that you can manifest. And I could not get out of my head that I wanted to manifest a sapphire, like a crystal sapphire that was about this big, right? So it would fit in the palm of my hand perfectly. And I'm like, wow, I'm asking for, that's nuts, Therese. Like, I was like, that is a lot to ask. We're like, where you get, how is a crystal like that going to show up in your life?
Yeah.
But I picked it and I was like, I don't care. That's what I picked. I let it go. So we go to this, we have a grocery store here called Fred Meyer. And it's like one of those multi grocery stores where it has like it had a jewelry shop, bank, like a coffee thing. It's like a multi complex type thing. And I remember going to the grocery store, and this was like maybe 12 to 16 hours later after making that. And I said to I saw the jewelry store and I'm like, I just wonder, like, I want to go over and look at sapphires because it'll help me manifest it. That's what I was like. So I'm looking at them and I know I can't afford anything in there. I'm not going to get it, but I'm looking at it. And the woman comes over and she's like, oh, are you interested? And I'm like, no, I'm just taking a look. And she's like, well, we're having a sales event coming up on the weekend. And she hands me a postcard and she's like, here it is in case you want to come back. And so she hands me the postcard. She puts it in the palm of my hand and it's a sapphire this big on. And I was like, you fuckers.
There it is. There's
like,
your manifestation.
Literally manifested a sapphire in the palm of my hand.
In your hand.
In my hand. And that size exactly on the image. And I was just like, wow, technically.
Yeah. They delivered, technically.
They did deliver.
Yes.
I was not specific. So it was like a joke on specificity, right?
Yes.
And like, be careful what you ask for, because
Yeah.
you're going to get it, but you might not get it in the way you think you're going to get it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's an important lesson, is when you do realize how powerful you are, and you start calling things in, and the next thing you know, like I use this example in my community, to demonstrate how powerful we are, but how important it is to be specific. And sometimes we don't have that highest perspective, so you always want to say, in alignment with your highest good.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going through this phase where I'm like, you know what, and I hope this isn't triggering for anyone, it's just my reality, but I'd love to lose some weight. I'm busy, I'm a busy single mom, like I just, all the reasons, right? I'm like, okay, I'm ready. And but I'm busy, so let's just call it in and see how it happens, and we'll just kind of leave it at that. Well, next thing I know, I've got like the worst stomach bug. And you
Oh
can imagine
no.
the next, how the rest of that goes.
Right.
Well, I did lose weight, but not in the way that I had wanted. So,
Right.
lesson learned. Number one, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that everything is in alignment with my highest good,
Yeah.
and be flexible, and also recognize that I have power in how I make my choices throughout my reality that can align. Because sometimes it's just like literally stepping out the door, right? Like our choice points are so key to how we live this experience, and is also, that's their sovereignty,
Mm-hmm.
recognizing that I am whether it's that, whether it's, one of the big things I had called in was I wanted to be the embodiment of the best healer self I can be, not comparing myself to anyone. I'm not setting a specific standard, I'm only asking for me to embody that for myself. Well, then all the lessons start coming in, right?
Yeah.
All of the layers that help you do that. And sometimes it's stuff you don't recognize. Sometimes it's healing that you didn't recognize you still needed to do. Sometimes it's working with someone where you're like, I don't want to work with them. But that's going to push you into, okay, well, I would only work with someone in my integrity. So I need to let go of those human layers that make me resist that connection, resist that experience, and look at why I'm looking at an individual that way, right? What part of my ego is coming into play, rising up for me to witness it and go, okay, that's your 3D self. And if you're still embodying your 3D self and you're trying to do healing work, you're not going to be able to embody the most harmonious, most powerful healer self that you can be. You have to do that from the higher perspective. And that was a big lesson, and something I teach now, is that we set aside that part of ourself, we can come back to it, but in that moment, right, for that second, for that minute, for that 10 minutes that you're in that space, you're embodying that higher version of yourself.
Mm.
And the beautiful thing is that the more you consciously do that, the more you unconsciously bring that into everything, right? Making breakfast, taking my kid where she needs to go, all the mundane things that we don't think of as light work, but are actually light work because we exist. And that's incredible and amazing. And we're
Yeah.
sharing this frequency with everyone around us. And we're also doing it while embodying all the beauty that is being human.
Ugh, such a good point. And I love that. I mean, there's, like I said, I keep saying this over and over again, but it really is, there's so much of it that's simple. And I feel like a
Yeah.
lot of it is just uncomplicating this for like
Yeah.
uncomplicate for yourself. And that brings me to, I'm sure that this conversation is going to light some people up, and they're going to want to learn more from you, that your words really resonate for them. So let's talk about how people can connect with you and work with you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I hope this conversation lights people up. I mean, that's what we're here for. If my work resonates, I have my largest presence is on Instagram, so at Starseed Dreaming. My website is starseeddreaming.com, and you can pretty much find all of my courses. I do have a membership community that is kind of the love of my life right now.
Yeah, let's talk
Beautiful.
about that.
Yeah. Instagram is great, but you can only say so much.
Mm-hmm.
And you can only talk about so much. And so the need really arose to have a place where we could get together and connect in a deeper and more meaningful way. So my community is called the Cosmic Kindreds membership community. And it's very budget friendly. It's month to month. There's no commitment. But really, it's a space for us to get together, to be supported by one another, to talk about what's going on, whether that's in your 3D reality, whether that's, on your ascension journey. We're not about perfection. We're about just doing the work and showing up as the best that we can be that day. And we know that that fluctuates. We do twice monthly Zooms. So those are in-depth chats where we talk about, so for example, we have a New Earth Part 2 coming up. We just did a Part 1 in our last Zoom. All those replays are available, so lots of people like to dive in and catch up on the past classes that we've had. I also have a abundance class in there. I bring through energy reports, channeled energy reports from the guides, and that's always really powerful because it's helpful to have those layers of support that we all have, and then be able to connect and talk about, yeah, I'm going through that too, or that's exactly what I've been feeling right now, and keep the conversation going. So really, it's just a space to support light workers, star seeds, anyone who's on an ascension journey, awakening. Again, there's no level of perfection anyone needs to achieve. We're really here just loving and supporting each other, and so that's a really good way to get that support, hopefully manageable for both your time and budget.
And also, you have an amazing gift that you're offering people who are watching right now, which
Yes.
is the Meet Your Guides bundle. So can we talk about that briefly?
Yes, thank you. Yes, so I put together, so obviously I do a lot of work with the guides. I've been doing readings for people for quite a while, and I love that work. And it's taught me so much connecting in with people's guides and really getting to know the entire spectrum of beings that are there and available for people. So I put together a little bundle. It's at this point, I'm finalizing it, but it's about 15 pages where I walk you through the different guides that are around and available, and which guides may be most aligned for certain things that are going on in your reality. So we talk about light beings, we talk about animal spirits, which almost everybody has several of.
Mm-hmm.
We also talk about star family. Many of us have had off-planet experiences, and they do show up as guides for people. That's a little bit different than, say, a light being that's an extension of yourself. We talk about that in the guide, but we have a team of light around us. So the PDF, and there is a companion downloadable MP3 guided journey that you can listen to and really just step into that place, no space, no time, connect with all the goodness that your guides have available for you. And hopefully that can be a really powerful launching point for people to consciously connect with their guides, because remember, they're always there.
Mm-hmm.
Consciously connect with them and really start to expand into how they can bring conscious, right? Because they're always being in support and love, but that recognizable conscious support and love into your reality. So remember, they want the same thing. They want you to grow, evolve, be happy. The stuff that you're calling in, they want for you.
Yeah.
That abundance, that safety, the cocooning of our reality. They want that for you as well. They want you to feel safe. They want you to feel loved. They want you to grow. So that's a little freebie that I have for everyone. I know you have the links, and we'll throw those in, but you can also find that on starseeddreaming.com. And I don't want to share the link because I don't remember. I know I gave it to you.
Yeah. So it'll be here. It'll be in the
Okay,
video
because I'm
so
gonna
that they can
screw it
see
up
it.
and send someone in the wrong place.
We'll make sure that they get
Yeah.
that. Absolutely.
Oh,
So that is so generous. And I mean, it sounds amazing. I love my team. I mean, and it's so great to be with someone else who sees that as well, and helping to keep spreading the word that, again, one of the things that I've been asked to do through my team is break down entrainment on different things. So it's always like, try to break the illusion in some way. And of course, one of the illusory things that was set up when I first started coming into, again, so we going back and we're talking about having gifts, but not even understanding that they're gifts because it's your life, right?
Yeah.
But they're the gatekeepers of like, oh, you to be psychic, you have to be like this, and
Yeah.
and if it didn't match or you didn't have that or someone didn't give you permission, then you weren't that. And one of the first gates that I was asked to break the illusion on is this idea that only a chosen few of us have these abilities.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, these are your extended abilities. These are your, if you're a multidimensional being and you have a sense of sight in the physical world, you also have clairvoyance, which is your, allows you to see into the non-physical. So every sense has its counterpart, and it's not about whether you have it or not, it's whether it's turned on
Yeah.
or not, and
Absolutely.
which ones are your talents, right? So some of us are just, sight is our predominant um viewing. I mean, it's our, of course it's our viewing, it's our predominant sense. It's like how we initially connect, so it makes sense that it would already be sort of activated over here.
Yeah.
Whereas those who are really attuned to sound, makes sense
Hmm.
that you would attune to sound. And it's just like
Yeah.
all of these things you have access to, some are easier than others to connect with, and some are more, you rely on more than others naturally.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that you're helping to spread that message, and helping to remind people that there is nothing out there that you don't have access to. And a big part of why you're not experiencing it is simply a choice. You just didn't know you could choose.
Yeah.
Right? So here we are letting you know you can absolutely choose. And here's a tool to help you connect in and find that sense of security while you're still developing the the stronger bond, the stronger relationship.
Yeah.
So thank you for offering that to people. That's so wonderful.
Um, well, thank you for having me and giving me a voice and a platform to share this information from the guides. And hopefully it does activate, those rememberings within people. I mean, that is, I think that's why we're all here. We're here to
Absolutely.
help people reconnect with who they are. And it's there. It's there.
Absolutely. Because our, as we're moving forward, as we raise those levels of consciousness like you talked about, we are in it for the win-win. It's not, it's not fully winning if some of us get left behind, and we know this on a soul level. We understand, like, that's why we
Yeah.
came in here. It's like,
Yeah.
we're not here to rescue people. I'm very strong about that, because again, if we're all sovereign beings, who
Yeah.
do you have to rescue?
Hmm. That's a big one.
Right? And so when we're talking about leadership, we're not talking about saving anybody.
Hmm.
We're literally
Yeah.
talking about leading through example and sharing, sharing what we know, so that it,
Yeah.
again, it'll activate somebody. And if it activates just one person, we did an awesome job.
Yeah. I think it's going to activate more than one though.
Oh, I hope so. I
Yeah.
hope so. But again, it's like the all we need
Beautifully
is
said.
one.
Beautifully
All we need
said.
is-
Yes. So that's a message to the viewer. Be the one. Be the one
Yes.
who awakens.
Or
Yeah.
go deeper, if, because I sense a lot of people are also already awake who will view this, and so it's a
Mhm.
call to each of us, including ourselves, to keep, we can
Yeah.
keep going deeper, we can keep
Yeah.
going and connecting to, like you were saying, um with source, and how it's separated many layers. There's always another layer that we can get us closer and deeper in.
Yeah.
And so may this transmission help guide you to do that.
Yeah. And so
Yay.
it
So
is.
I love
I
it.
love
So
that.
thank you so much for being a part of the New Earth Leadership Summit. And to those of you who are watching, thank you so much for being with us. I hope that you not only found something that resonated for you deeply, but you also connected into some of the joy and silliness that was happening on the other side of this conversation.
A lot of that.
A
Yes.
lot of that was happening. So I'm celebrating you. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you at the next episode of the New Earth Leadership Summit.
Thank you.